hose, and nobody ever did anything about it, and they would see the same contracts every month, and so it's like, yeah, you're telling me it's ugly, but thank you. I don't need to be you don't need to poke me in the face with it every day, every week, every month. So please quit poking me. So that's when we went back to the redesign to try to figure out a way to make it a manageable piece of data that you can throttle back, and hopefully you would set it to say, you know what, me and my team, my sales team, my service manager team, we can deal with 10 contracts a month that we can look at and try to come up with an action plan. That's why we created the 768 and 769s, and the concept being that you would get a report of these, here are your 10 worst contracts, and then what are you going to do about it? And so then the next step is, trying to make it a part of a process, is either you can do something about it, you can escalate the contract, you can fire the customer, or in most cases, like, if you're like us, we just have not a lot of, the click pricing was negotiated and we just can't do a whole lot with it right now, and I'm not willing to fire the customer yet, so then how do I get this report, that contract off this report so that I don't look at it every month, because there's really nothing I can do about it. I want to see a different set of I want to see next month, show me contracts I'm planning on doing something about. And so we added a custom property and the ability to snooze a contract. And so you can take a contract that's being flagged that we're telling, hey, this guy's ugly, and you can go to the contract and say, yeah, don't tell me about this contract again for another 6 months. And then that contract will not show up in the alerts anymore or in your bottom worst until you hit that snooze date. And then we added the ability to add a note to the contract, and on that note is where, if you wanted to follow through a process, you and your team would put on a note on that contract you snooze with what did you discuss, what did you talk about, and what do you plan to do about it. And you save that note on the contract, so when that contract shows back up on the report, we will print out that note for you to say, hey, you snoozed this puppy, and here it is, and by the way, this is what you guys talked about you were going to do. And so that's how we've tried to make this a process. So we're going to walk through how this would work for you guys, and then we'll look for some feedback on how we could make it better without making it complex. So anyway, on your custom reports, if you were going to run the report manually, it's under your custom reports, and it should say the CEO Juice Contract Analytics Customer Profitability. The latest version is 2013-0521. We're still doing some shakedowns on that, and we'll wait for the results of today's meeting and feedback from you guys before we do a global release. But unless we have some major changes, we'll go ahead and install it start going through installing it for everybody. But this is where you can trick yourself up. You basically, with all the new parameters, yeah.
We have a question. Keith would like to know how they add this report to their custom reports. So can you just explain to them about us installing them?
Yeah, so the way the custom reports works, if you guys have a shared custom reports folder in eAutomate, and let me just go back here and show that for those that don't understand how that works. Under Tools and Options and Reports, you can tell eAutomate that you're going to keep all of your reports on the network device here and all your custom reports here. And then if you set that up and you give us rights to this custom reports folder, then we can do the complete install for you. We run the script so that it inserts the report into the eAutomate database, but it will not show up in the custom reports until we actually physically drop that custom report file into this folder. If you don't have this set up, then it has to be installed on everybody's individual workstation in their local program files, eAutomate custom reports folder. So that's why it's from a standpoint here, if you would go ahead, everybody, if you haven't set up a shared custom reports folder, give all your users rights to that folder so they have read rights and they can see the reports. Then as we make updates and changes for you guys, we don't have to bother you or your IT team. We just drop that report into that folder. I think if that's Keith up at Solution 1, we've had some issues with...
Can you change to full screen mode?
What's that?
Can you change to full screen mode?
I am. Where do I change that? In the presentation?
Yeah. They can't read everything very well.
I am in full screen. I may have a different resolution.
It's as big as it's going to get, actually.
Presentation.
That's often the case for Mike. He has to make that. It's as big as it's going to get. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I. Well, I'm not even gonna go there. But anyway, let me see if this is better. Oh, that's worse. Let me try a different setting real quick here. Ain't nobody's going to read my work.
John says change it from show screen to show app in the go-to meeting.
Oh, okay. So I can go back to my other one. All right, so where are we at with the show app? There we go.
It's not going to make a whole lot of difference, I don't think. But carry on, Mike. Otherwise, we'll.
There we go. Is that better?
No. Oh, that's better. Yeah.
Okay. So So anyway, if everybody could, would set up these customer report folders, that makes it easiest for us to help you guys and get our reports installed. So anyway, so going back to the report here, and what is this going back here? I don't want to show that. All right, there we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
So we go back to the report here. Is with these new parameters, you can definitely trip yourself up. And make that a little bit bigger there. So we're using the analytics rolling months out of eAutomate with the eAutomate analytics. And for those who don't understand how that works, eAutomate's done a great job with creating these periods, rolling periods to go back 24 months, 16 quarters, I think, and 2 years. And you can go back fiscal years, calendar years, anyway. They created shortcuts for these things, and these shortcuts are RM, which means rolling month 1, and you can go back to rolling month 24. eAutomate actually in analytics, there is a RM00, and rolling month 00 is the current month that we're in. So right now, rolling month 00 would be June. But for analytic purposes, typically you don't want to pick up the most current month because you may or may not have billed your contract, so there wouldn't be any revenue, or may not be revenue. So it's safer to pull always from the last full month. So the rolling month 01 is always the previous full month from the month you're in today. So, and then back to is how far back you want to go. If I go back 12 months, that means I'm going to go back 12 months from May. So it'll be May to May. So that's how the rolling month thing works, and you'll see these if you've played with any of your eViews for analytics. You'll see all these different rolling values. And if you need documentation, we have a Word document that we can send you guys if you just send it to help at for the analytics dimensions is what they're called, time dimensions. You can of course select which kind of time contracts you want to run. In this case, I've got to use the advanced filter to run only contracts that are my supply included contracts. So basically, it's my cost per copy CPC contracts. You can tell it whether or not you want to show the equipment detail on the report or not. Obviously, showing the equipment detail would make the report extensively longer. So maybe in your first passes, when you're just trying to look at the data, you'd want to run it only for the contracts that you wouldn't show the details. Only include customers with current contracts. So this is where you start to get into trying to do ranking. So 99% of the time you would say yes, because if the contract's terminated, if the customer doesn't have any active contracts, then I don't care about seeing that on my report anymore. But if you were trying to run this contract profitability for a contract that had expired 4 months ago and the customer didn't renew, and for some ungodly reason somebody somewhere wants to go see what you did, you'd have to come turn that off if that contract's no longer active. Then the next thing is to include only contracts active for how long. The purpose behind this, if I'm doing my ranking and I'm trying to rank my worst contracts, if we're doing a lot of times when we take on service or we're installing a brand new contract or we're taking on a bunch of managed printers, we have to front load that contract with a lot of supplies, right? So that contract's going to be ugly, but it's brand new. So I don't want that contract to show up as my worst profitable contract. So that's why you can say, yeah, if only show me contracts that have been active for at least 6 months. So that's a big trick there.
Mike?
Yeah.
Question is this report compatible with 8.0, 8.1, or 7.6 also?
Yeah, it runs through analytics, so it runs all the way through. Yeah. Nothing changes between the versioning of that. It's just our version. We just added new features to this, our latest revision, but it's compatible back. It's like I said, we're pulling the data out of analytics. So really, what's important to us is version 2 of analytics, and we take care of that. So and then so only contracts are active, and then the other side is only include contracts where the average monthly revenue is greater than X. The point behind that is if I have a $15 contract that I'm only billing $15 a month, then I'm right now in the beginning when I'm just trying to get my worst guys out of the way, I may want to say, you know what, I don't care if it's only 15 bucks a month. I'm looking at the guys that are that I'm billing more than $100 a month maybe. So this is where you would control that. Once again, to take this out of the factor, just put 0, and that means you're going then how much we bill them, the average monthly revenue is going to be taken out of the picture. Then show only if the customer's margin is less than X%. This would be, I would keep this at 100 if I'm trying to find my worst performing contracts. If I'm trying to just say, show me only customers I'm losing money on when I'm making less than 15% margin, then I would put 15% here. And then that kind of, it's just an addition with all the other checks. So it would say, yeah, he's been active more than 6 months, he's billing more than 0, but you're made 30%, so don't show this contract on there. Again, this is important. All these settings are important because if you're trying to look at one contract for just one customer, you would set all these up to be wide open. You'd say no there, you'd say active for 0 months, you'd say revenue 0, and you'd say margin 100%. Because I think with a couple of people, I think Ashley and a couple of people first installed it, they say, I can't make it run for contract B. And so we go look at it and well, it's because you've turned on these other settings and contract B doesn't match any of those settings anymore, so contract B is not going to show up. So just be really careful with how you set it here because you can hide the alert from yourself, hide the report from yourself. But 100% would basically, once again, that takes the margin out of the equation. So it's basically show me everything, I don't care what the margin is. So then the next thing is the custom property, the snooze review date. And I'll cover how that is set, but that's basically saying we don't know it. All you guys create your own custom properties. We may create them for you, so we never know what that name is going to be. So we created a drop-down that gives you a list of all the custom properties on the contract, and then we, you pick the one and tell us, oh, it's the profit alert snooze. That's what I called it, and then include snooze contracts through what date. So once again, if I want everything, I'd put today. But if I didn't, so if the contract has a snooze date after today, it's not going to show up. If I wanted to see everything regardless of the snooze date, then I'd put like 2090.99 here, and that way it's the snooze date is taken out of the equation. So right now, the report's going to, no matter what all the other settings are, it's going to look at if you have a snooze date set on that contract. It's going to say, yeah, but is it snoozed past today? If it is, don't show it. So then the show only bottom X. This is how you control how many results that you get. So I'm going to run 10 for the example today, just the 10 worst customers for my supply included contracts that have been active for more than 6 months. And then the note type of the review on the contract, again, if you want to use this process, you can. And so I've created a note type called margin revenue plan. And we use that note on the contract to make notes. And then when this report prints out, if I find any of these notes, then I add those notes to the report on that contract for you to say, by the way, here are the notes you've been making about the profitability of this contract. And then minimum number of active machines on the contract. Once again, we've had clients say, yeah, but I only care about the managed print contracts that are profitable but have more than 10 machines. So you can tweak it here to say, only show me the guys that have more than 25 machines under a single contract. If you want to see everything, you put 1, and that's kind of the base. So all of that being said, when you click OK, it goes out and it should do its little thing here. And there we go. So when we did this, I told it to show it by you live. So we're showing you originally we had it sorting by the percentage of loss, and then somebody pointed out to me, hey, losing 500% on a $20 contract is not as bad as losing $10,000. So show me by dollar amount. So we flipped it in the last version to show you the worst by dollar amount, the total margin for the period. So you can see these are my 10 worst customers. The first customer, we're losing so much money, there goes the owner's kids' Ivy League college fund, so they'll be going to a public university.
My question
Mm-hmm.
is the worst customer combined parent-child customers.
Well, yeah, but that fit under the, for all the contract that customer may have. So I'll cover that. That's a great question. What we ran into is we had a couple of clients that said, I have 12 different contracts for a school board, and I'm looking for my worst performing customers, really, my worst performing customers that are under these types of contracts. So it made sense because, like here at SOS, I don't have multiple contracts for a customer typically. I mean, multiple supply included contracts. You know, I may have a managed print contract, and I may have a managed network services contract, but I didn't see any harm of doing the roll-up. So if that parent has 10 locations and you've set up 10 contracts for each of those locations, and those contracts sum up to be the total of the worst, then it'll come up and show that. So it's kind of really meant to be customer contract profitability, and that's why it says contract customer margin alert, not just this contract sucks. Because if we did it just for a contract, what I was afraid of is that you would look at that one contract at that one school and you would freak out and you would never have visibility on that report because of the way you run it to see that, yeah, but I'm okay overall. So it was kind of that catch-22 of trying to tell you the contracts that are doing bad, but at a customer level, but not freaking people out when without giving them the big picture to be able to say, oh yeah, okay. So anyway, if we needed to have it be purely 100% worst contracts, I would want to create a new version of that. But in working with it and working with the clients that show the good case point of having them roll up to the parent customer, then that's what I do. So we do roll up to the parent in any contracts associated with that parent. And so that's the total up there. And so you can see we give you period totals and then lifetime for that customer, and then we give you period totals for that contract and lifetime for that contract. Once again, the reason behind, I ran this for the last 12 months. Okay, it's ugly, but how am I doing overall for the lifetime of the contract? Well, it's even uglier. Obviously, you can see we're really doing bad there. By the way, I'd be happy to give this customer to any other competitors here in Atlanta that would like to take this customer on. But so we have.
Like we actually have a request to have it run at the contract level. If we have multiple contracts for one customer, they're generally not related to one another, and we would want a breakout by contract.
And so are those contracts the same type, or are they different types? That would be my question.
This is Cheryl Haverson. Cheryl, can you post me and let me know if those are all the same contract types? She also wants to know if this is invoiced revenue or earned revenue.
We use the contract analytics, so the distributed. So the way the distributed revenue works, for those that don't understand how that works, you automate looks at the coverage dates on the contract invoice when you invoice it. And let's say you've invoiced it from January to March, and we'll make it easy, January 1 through March 31. Then if you bill them $900, then analytics takes that $900, divides it by 90 to come up with a $10 per day, and then allocates that revenue across those days for each period in the billing cycle. So it looks at the coverage dates. Yeah, it's not
based on the earned revenue.
Yeah, on the invoice, right? And once again, because costs are based upon what's happened to date, and so it would be we're not showing you the unearned revenue. So I guess is the best way to put it. So if I were, Sam?
Her contract types are different.
So she would, in her world, she would run the report for different contract types to see the worst customers. So but we can take that offline without getting caught into that. But it made a lot of sense to do it at customer level, and it's worked. Everybody else we've worked for yet. So if you come up with a business case where it's different, then we would obviously, if one person does it and 4 or 5 people have the same issue, we can create one that groups it by straight up contract number. It's the classic case that Digital Gateway struggles with, and all software companies do. You do it one way, and half the people are happy, and they never say anything, and half the people hate it, and they say something, so you change it to make that half happy, and then the other people that were happy are now pissed off, and so they're like, why'd you change it? Okay. So anyway, but we can, Cheryl, if you want to set up a call with Ashley, and if you can convince her, we'll be. But anyway, we'll look at that, absolutely. So going back to, so if you look at the lifetime of this customer here, once again, though, in answer Cheryl's question, if it's the same customer parent, this lifetime is all contracts billed in the Automate, not just the contract for that type. Because if I'm trying to tell you that you're getting your ass kicked on this particular contract here, and then you need to know, yeah, but this particular customer is actually not so bad for me overall. So when we look at the customer, it's not just for the types of contracts I selected, it's for everything that's going on at that customer's account. Once again, to try to keep a relevance and keep it in perspective. So this contract is killing me, but overall I'm not doing that bad. Well, actually in this case I am doing horrible both ways, but that was the idea behind it. So the period revenue represents what's up here, the period you selected, and the lifetime revenue represents everything in analytics for that particular contract. So you can see active revisions. We've had 1 revision on this contract only, and you can see I rolled it up to the contract major. So I'm not showing 24974-01-02, although if you were to drill in, you could see the details. If I drill down to the report, then it takes me to the individual details. So for the 01 version of that report, and if I had done a renewal and there was an 02 version, then I would see an 02 version. If my renewal crossed year, like I renewed it halfway, then I may see the -01 version would have rolling month 12 through 6, and the -02 version would have 5 through 1, because that's those 2 contracts overlapped each other for the period. So that's once again just trying to keep it all in perspective here. Get this out of the way there. So you can run through and just click down to see the different customers. Say this is a customer I want to recommend to Icon, and then I'm going to give a lead to the Canon branch for this guy right here. One thing to keep in mind, let me see if I've got one here. The little asterisk. If you see this little star, I don't know if you can see that right there, the little red star. If you notice there's a footnote at the bottom that says this star indicates that the cost of supplies color plus the cost of supplies black and white is not adding up to the total. Well, the reason for that is that if I were to go drill into the details and go look at the supply items that I've sold that customer, there's some supply items I've got out there that I haven't indicated in the Automate that are what meter type that they're used on. And again, for those who don't know how that works in the Automate, on the item, just find something real here. Is that you set the meter type up here, and that's how eAutomate and Analytics know whether it's a black and white supply or a color supply. If you leave it blank, they can tell it's a supply because they look at the service code on the item. Excuse me. And this right here is how Analytics, and thereby all of our reports, that's how we know something is a supply item. It's based upon the service category and the service code. So if you got your service category set up correctly on your service codes, and we can tell whether it's a supply or a part, we know how that works. Analytics knows that. And then we look over here to see, yeah, but is it a black and white or a color? If you leave it blank, then it's going to fall into the other category of supplies. And so the little star on the report is just saying, hey, by the way, before you call us and tell us our numbers don't add up, it's because you've got some supply items we found that are not coded. So. And if I wanted to find out what supply items they were, I would go to my eViews Analytics, run the analytics for this particular contract number, 24462, and I would look for the analytic detail type is equal to supplies, and then it would show me all the item numbers, and then I could find the one that doesn't have the right meter usage type. Matter of fact, with somebody last week I was working with, we added that to the, we customized the analytics eView to add that meter usage type to the eView so that they could see which items were missing coding. Total clicks billed, average, overage, underage, cost per copy, and we're basing the cost per copy on actual clicks, parts and labor. These are the numbers on here are lifetime numbers for that customer. Once again, this is the period numbers for the contract, lifetime numbers for the contract, so forth and so on. So,
question, Mike. Cheryl's asking, how about staples as far as the supplies go?
Well, you would cost those as staples. They're not going to be assigned to a meter usage type, so they would show up as cost of supplies, but they wouldn't be broken out to the category here, if that's how you wanted to charge them. So that item, the staple items, would not be assigned to a meter usage type. So does that make sense? I hope that answered that question.
So in other words, there can be items marked as supplies but doesn't have a meter type that will indicate that red asterisk.
Right, exactly, yeah. I for certain didn't mean to say you had to, we definitely cannot put a meter type on every supply item that we put on a copier. But it's all I'm saying is that here's the total supplies. Running out of real estate space, you can see I've squeezed as tight as I can. I didn't have another space to add cost of supplies other, not categorized, without making the report unreadable or going to a queen size bed sheet size printout. And I don't think many of us have the machines that have that kind of output format. So I'm just telling you that the asterisk is going, by the way, these two numbers are not going to add up to that. I think if I go look, see, it goes away on these because the two numbers add up. That means all of my supply items that I've got have pushed over there. Wow, they do add up. Wow, that's the first. Just kidding. Well, we add the earliest contract activation date is trying to tell you that for this particular customer, I find the oldest contract that customer's ever had with us to try to let you know how long that customer's been with us. We go look back up here. We have the NPS score. Customer loves us. Well, of course he does. He's making money on us. So you can tell he gave us 100% NPS score. So let's go. If you have any more questions about the physical report, I'll explain the process on the review process again.
One more question.
Sure.
How would they know a discrepancy from toner or staples? So could you show that drill down again on the cost of supplies so they could see that they could identify staples as opposed to toner?
Well, they'd have to go to analytics, the eViews.
And we have a test we
Right.
can run. If anybody's worried, we have a standard test we'll run, and we'll give you a list of items. And in fact, we'll even update them for you.
But they would go into the eViews and run that, and and we can show you guys how to do that offline. So if you have, and we're more than happy to do that. You just schedule a time to go over this report for us and set up a time. Then we'll do a go-to meeting with you individually. We'll help you set up that customized eView, and we'll show you how to go find that. So, but it's under the distributed eViews. I think I'll kill my performance if I open up eViews here.
So we'll run out of time, Mike. We want to cover the snoozing piece.
Okay, well, I won't get into that then. All right, it was confusing me, John. GoToMeeting was blinking at me and showed me move this away from my shared screen, so it was fussing at me. I couldn't take it. Okay, so now let's say I've looked at these contracts. So the process we would think is that I can handle 10. Me and my service manager, my sales manager can discuss 10 contracts. We can find time enough to talk about 10. We can't look at a 500-page report. So now we're going to take these 10 and we're going to sit down and we're going to decide what are we going to do with this contract. Well, maybe this contract's killing us, and so we want to have, the action plan for us is to, we can't fire the customer right now because he's married to the owner's sister. So we're kind of stuck with the customer, but I want to get this guy off the report because I don't want to look at this guy every month for the next 6 months. I want to get him off this report. So I would go back into there, and I would open up that contract. Here's that contract number. Then I'd come over here to my custom properties, and I would say the contract profit alert snooze date, and we would say, let's say we're going to snooze this thing to the end of the year, right? And now I don't know if you guys notice, eAutomate still has, it's even 8.0, 8.1, I don't think they've even fixed the latest of 8.1. When you change custom properties, it doesn't necessarily trigger the OK button, so you typically have to go touch something else, put a space bar or something to make the OK button trigger on. No matter what you change in custom properties, it won't trigger the OK button until you do something else somewhere else. So I typically go over the remark and you put a space or take a space out, and then it's, oh, you changed something, go for it. So we go from there. And then if I wanted to put a note, I would come into here, and I would add a note type of profit margin review plan, whatever I called it, margin revenue plan. And we could say here, and then say quick add, and so now I've added that note type, and that's when I ran that custom report. That's why we ask you, well, what note type are you using? So you would try to train your people to use the same note type, and then let it go and let it go.
Mike, can you explain about that custom property that we install it when we install the report? John Balter's asking the question.
Yes, when we install these reports for you guys and we have the rights to set up the custom properties, we will create the custom property for you, this alert, this snooze date, and it won't be populated, of course, because we handle the case when it's not there at all. So we'll create the custom property for you, and then they should let you know what it's called. But I've got it built into the custom report. I've got the lookup there, so once we set that up there, you can do the it'll show you all, the custom properties. What I'm doing there, by the way, John, is I'm finding things that start with ZCJ, so I'm kind of filtering out based upon that. So, and then we go, you would say this is it, and actually now I'm finding date-time custom properties. So I'm finding all the custom properties that have a date-time type. So set that and let it go.
One more question. Since the report grabs customers, if we have a customer with 10 times contracts, do we have to snooze all 10, or is there a way to snooze by customer?
We could snooze by customer. That's a good question. We can, we need to incorporate that. And if you notice, my badass customer's gone from the report now. So, so that's something we should do, Ashley. We can incorporate that. What we would do is you would use the same custom property name. So if I go to Tools, List, and Codes, and I'll go to my customer configurations right here, and I would use the exact same attribute. So we can share, that's what we'd have to be. It'd have to be the same attribute used. So we'll go down here and find ZCJ Profit Alert Snooze, and let's say Quick Add. And so now, that same custom property name, that's really what we have to trigger on, is what is that attribute name, and then we could snooze it by the customer. I don't know if that's such a good idea, but you could. And I think it was Cheryl that had the case where she had 10 contracts, right? So yes, let's make that tweak, Ashley. Let's put that down there. So, in which case the customer would override the contract. Yeah. And the customer would override the contract. So if the customer snoozed, then no matter what you got on contracts, the customer is going to override it.
So Mike,
customer property for ad hoc grouping of contracts?
No. When I tried to do ad hoc grouping inside of here, it got ugly in Crystal. I mean, this thing is already complex enough, and I don't know if you guys have ever done much Crystal reporting, and we have few of our Crystal reports where we can do ad hoc grouping, but the ad hoc grouping is basically a choice of 3 things. It's not totally ad hoc. It's like, no, it's got to be this way or the other. It just becomes, because all these numbers are running totals, and it just gets ugly. So no, there's no ad hoc grouping. We're going to group it by the parent customer, and then we're going to group it by the contract major. If you wanted to run it any other way, you'd run it for certain contract types. You'd run the report in different ways. You'd pick different different, where am I at? Where's my report at? Different parameters when you run the report.
Mike, I'm going to post a link to what 768 looks like on the right. Can you pull that up on the screen when you're ready? I want to try and get some feedback as to what else we may want to show on that.
Oh, did you send me that?
Yeah, it should be over in GoToMeeting. It should be there for everyone.
Oh wait, how do I do it? I'm new to this.
Yeah. Should be there in your chat window.
Oh, the chat window? Oh, okay. Oh, the link to me. Oh, duh. Oh.
Second one.
And then I have to share that app, right, John? So, woo. Is that it? That's it. Can you see it?
Yeah, can you make it bigger? Just
oh man,
hit the little up on the top right. There's a percentage. Down a bit. There's a zoom option on the. Go to the right. One more to the right.
There's no zoom there, baby.
There. Hit that. Hit the drop down there.
Oh, the drop down button. Okay, like this.
Yeah.
Wow, that only worked everywhere. Uh-oh. I need one of those buttons. Okay, so the alert, 768 and 769, 777, 71, whatever. So the concept behind that is that, yeah, you could go manually run the report 5 different ways every month to go see your worst 10. So we figured out a way to basically take the summary level of the report and then give you the basics. So we're saying here's the number 1 worst rate contract for the contract types that you specify in 768. So you know, in 768 I may have said only managed print contract types for the last 6 months, you know, and where the period cost margin is, you know, and I print out the parameters up here. So whatever you said in 768, I'll show you up here what these numbers are based upon, the parameters that you put in 768 for us. And then we give you the details here. So we give you the period margins, and then we give you the contract lifetime margin, and then we give you the customer margin. So once again, to not cause heart attacks unnecessarily. Because we all know what it's like. You have a meeting with the owner or the principals, and they look at a number here, and everybody gets all wild and gets their panties all in a wad, and then you go back and run it, and you put it into perspective, and they're like, oh, okay, that's not so bad. So we're trying to show enough data here to keep it in perspective. So the concept behind this would be if you see something that looks really bad, go run the custom report for just that one guy, or go straight to analytics and dig into the details.
Question, Mike?
Yeah.
Is there any way to run this report by technician? If not, could this be added to the filter? Can you explain why that's probably not possible?
Well, here's the problem with my technician. I can run it if you signed. Let's see if I've got my. I got to get back down to that screen, right? So we're going to go to the. Where's the automate? Right here, okay. So if I have this customer here, and if I go to the contracts, and if you've assigned your technician to certain contracts, is a technician? No, technician's not a part of it. There's really not a way to run it by customer. And the reason why is that if I ran it by technician, who gets the revenue? So what if a contract had 7 different technicians working on it? So then how do I know what revenue goes with what technicians work? So they don't confuse this report with a technician profitability report, because those are really difficult, because we're, like I said, unless you have one technician responsible for a territory and he's the only guy that works in there. So if I had technician territories and I wanted to see my worst performing contracts for a particular tech's territory, then I don't know if we can just, I don't know if you can even assign those if territory is a drop-down list in their contracts. I don't think it is it? No, we could add territory as an option, a filter for the territory, and we would only report contracts in that territory. But if we start reporting equipment only in a territory, you can, I mean, like I said, we're not trying to make this a technician profitability report. That's mixing paradigms. That's, can you
Right,
make
and
my
there's
orange,
already
yeah,
a technician profitability.
yeah. Can you make my orange juice taste like apple juice? You know, and so it's not that I don't see a need for that, but this report would not be one. If we started adding the technician filter, then all of a sudden all the numbers get really wacky. If there's if eAutomate doesn't have a standard report that does profitability by tech that people are happy with, we're more than happy to look at creating one. But the million-dollar question, and John can pipe in if he has an answer, would be where do I get the revenue for that tech if multiple techs work on the same machine even? So
there is a technician profitability.
yes. So that's the idea, and that's the reason why we have, going back to the other one, the 768 and the 769 would be the you could run one for managed print services contract for the last 6 months, then run 769, run it for all your cost per copy contracts for the last 12 months, and then you look at those. And then the idea is to come up with an action plan. If you don't want to do anything with the contract, then why are we telling you about the same 10 contracts every month? It just annoys you, and it devalues our service if we're telling you about the same things over and over again, and you're just not doing anything with it. So please help us help you, and we're more than happy to help you go through the first couple of months of those reviews with their, if you want to have a monthly meeting and sit down and review and what should you do about this contract and show you how they all work, then that would be great. That's something we could do. And
so Mike, I'm trying to keep us within that 1 hour thing. Okay. I know you don't have a sample on 560 running off the latest, but do you want to just explain the difference?
Okay, so 560 is the thing that we've had out there for about 8 or 9 months. People I'm waiting for. Obviously, we're at alerts 800 now, so 560's kind of been parked out there. The idea behind 560, the output results will be just like it'll be just like 768. We're going to give you a summary level. We're not going to give you a big ass report. We're just going to give you summary details so that you'll know what's happening. And let me just go back to that one here real quick here. You can so we'll show you this information, but we're only going to show it to you, and it's not going to be sorted by the worst. It's going to be everybody that fits the parameter, and the parameter is show me everybody, all of my contracts that are below X% margin that are going to expire or have an escalation set up within the next X days. So you tell us how far in the advance do you want to look at a contract that's either coming up for renewal because you've got an end date on the contract, or you have an escalation set up on the base, on either the at the basic on the contract base rate, because we're looking at the contract escalation base rates. So if you've got either one of those dates coming up within the Y days, you tell us if it's 30 days or 60 days, then we will send you the alert, and you're saying, but only show me if the contract's less than 20% profitable. So we're going to show you the contracts that are less than 20% that are getting ready to be renewed, which means you have an option to not renew it, or you have an option to negotiate the price, or your escalation is scheduled. And I've got that about 90% done, 95% done. I want to show the escalation rate, so I can show you the date you have scheduled for the escalation, but I want to show you the escalation rate so you'll know how much it's going to go up when it escalates. So once again, you don't necessarily have to run all of these alerts.
We'll look at the overage estimate.
Yeah, I got to look.
So this one will look at. Sorry, Mike. This one will look at overage escalation as well if it's a CPC.
Right, and that's where it's got to go through the the step through the escalation. So I'm looking for any escalation date down at the meter group level, and then or at the contract level. How many people? I'm wondering real quick. How many people actually do base rates on the equipment level with escalations? Because I haven't thought about going that far, because that adds a whole nother level of complexity. I was thinking that in this first job we would just deal with the meter groups. since the automating version 8 moved the base rates down to meter groups as an option, so I got to look there.
So somebody who does that, just post, please.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So the first, I tell you, the first pass of 560 will only look at the meter group escalations and/or the contract level escalation. Look at all of those, and if any of those dates are coming up within X days, then I'll show you and say, okay. And then I will on the alert, I'll tell you what triggered it. I'll say, oh, I found a meter group escalation rate that's going to happen in 15 days. So once again, the concept behind that is that if you don't have the time or the effort or can't do anything about looking at your worst 10 contracts for managed print every month, and it's just not something that's on your radar, and you don't need to be filling up your email box, then maybe 560 is a better alternative, which is basically saying, here are the guys that get ready, that you have the option to either fire because they're coming up for renewal, and or you got an escalation happening. Now's the time to review that contract. And so pick and choose your poison. In either scenario, we're going to install the custom report that you can always run on demand yourself. So.
And so one comment I would make, you know, as an ex-owner, I would want this alert to come from me and go to my service manager with a, hey, I need you to come up with an action plan on all of these. So that's how I would be doing it.
You know, and it's funny, we've been, you know, obviously this contract profitability alert 150, we've had it here at SOS for over a year. And I knew that nothing was happening because it was a 500-page report. It was just ridiculous. It was just so huge. But when we came up with the worst 10 and the action plan, Snooze, and we've been in here for about the last 60 days, it's amazing. I can get the service manager to do something with 10. They take the trouble, they take the effort, and it was fun for me to see the ahas. I could tell that they were paying attention because they were coming back, man, I never would have thought that customer was kicking our ass like this. So it's, you know, a lot of times with all of us, we all get busy with the day-to-day minutia. We don't ever take time to sit back and look at the big picture unless something's on fire or somebody's screaming. So the idea behind this 760 series of alerts is really to try to say, I know you've got to worry about a lot of minutia every day today, but here's five contracts. You can take time to look at 5 contracts because they're ugly.
Quick question, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So will ID 560 show you the base rate as well as the CPC?
Yes, I'll add that in there. I'll add the current contract base rate and CPC. Good idea. Let me make a note of that.
Well, Ashley can make a note.
Yeah, actually, keep that note. Just send it to me as I'm finishing up 560 to add the current contract, the base rate, and the current CPC rate, and then I'll explain where I got the escalation date that triggered it, whether I got it at the meter group level or at the contract level.
Okay, can I add equipment base rates to that note also?
If they have equipment base rates turned on.
So does it make more sense to go back to the custom report at that point, Mike? And
yeah, do we have a lot of people that have equipment base rates?
A ton.
Really? Really? John Balter, is that you?
No,
did John vote 70 teams? Did Cheryl vote 20 teams?
Cheryl and Jeff Taylor both are voting that.
That's wild. I mean, well, I have to say that's I would have thought. Basically, I've never seen anybody use base rates, and Jeffrey, I can't imagine that you do. But that's okay. Then I guess we'll have to.
I use them all the time, and so does Ashley Kaysen. Sorry.
Yeah. What do I know? Okay, well then it may take another week before we get 560 ready if we've got to add the equipment level base rate. Because so then it becomes an issue of this: do all of your equipment escalate at the same time at the same rate? Do they not? Do you have different equipment that escalate on different cycles? So some of the equipment's going to escalate next month, and the rest of them are going to escalate the month after that. Because I'm not showing you equipment level profitability; I'm showing the whole contract. So I mean that's where it gets to be complex when you start dragging in the equipment level. But what I would do is I would go grab the minimum next equipment level base rate. You know, I'd find the earliest date for all the equipment and say, there is a piece of equipment somewhere that's getting ready to escalate. Here's the entire contract profitability. But if I had to add the equipment level to this alert, then it could get to be very, very long. If you had a contract with equipment-based base rate escalations and you had 100 pieces of equipment, then all of a sudden that one contract is going to make your email, you know, a scroll bar about an eighth of an inch big.
So can I throw out a couple more points to people, just stuff that we've been kicking around here? So typically one of the big potential costs on a contract is supplies, and so a related alert is our excessive toner usage alert. And so you know, when you look at either the contract report or the excessive toner report, would you want to know, is on the excessive toner alert, would you want to know if the contract's losing money? And on the contract alert, would you want to know if we were flagging them as using excessive toner? And we had also kicked around the idea whether we needed to put a flag on the customer or on the contract so that, you know, dispatch could see that, hey, this customer is losing money. How did we talk about doing that, Mike? Was that a customer note or?
Yeah, you know, if there's a, I was multitasking. What was the question?
How you would flag a customer as in that bottom worst? How would we?
Well, okay, that's something to throw out to the group. Would you want us to add? We could add a remark.
I just threw it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Moved on to making yourself notes. You're still showing your screen with whatever.
Yeah. I was gonna look at the 560 stuff. I was gonna start coding while you were talking. Sorry, it's what I do. So
Hey, Mike, just to make it even more complex, we have a request for the meter group base rates also.
the meter group. Well, I am. Yeah, I incorporated that as I checked the meter group level.
No, meter group base rates.
Yeah, I checked that. Yeah, and I was like, on the meter group, there is a, you know, there's that tab to, no, on the meter group. Yeah, but I am checking the meter group level. So I'm checking at the meter group level. You can have an escalation on the meters or an escalation on the base. I'm checking both of those.
Okay, perfect.
So, Mike, where would we show a customer as in the bottom worst 10? Would that be like where?
Well, I mean, we could change the customer type if people didn't use types to make, hey, this guy's ugly, but then you got to do something to turn him off when he's no longer ugly. We could create a service note on the account. But in my case of showing them as the worst 10, are you trying to make a note somewhere as a service alert so the technicians know the customer's
exactly
ugly?
Or, yeah.
And then, you know, you'd have to put it at the correct me if I'm wrong, Mash, I think we'd have to put the service remark on every piece of equipment to show up on that service call, right? Unless we just sent an alert to the technician going, hey, this guy is one of our bottom worst customers. But my first question to that would be, and what's the tech supposed to do with that? Go late, not show up, or put a rubber band on the machine? Yeah, I can kiss my sister, but what good's going to come of it? So I'm just asking, what are we going to do if we put that note of this guy's ugly?
I'm
What do we
just throwing
expect
it out
everybody?
there for the group, just
Yeah.
to see if anybody is.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we
I hate
have
to do
One more
something.
question, Mike.
Yeah.
Is there a way to create a variance of this report where you could run by contract start month? This would be helpful for evergreen contracts renewed annually in the month they started.
Well, that would be you just run the period. You'd pick the rolling period. So if the contracts start March was January, I would just have to figure back what January's rolling month period 5. So I'd go RM5 back to RM17.
So was Andrew's question about 150 or about 560 or?
Oh, the 560. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. That's the other part. I see what he's saying. Yes. On 560, like here at SOS, we don't have any end dates on our contract. And if you don't have escalation dates set up and you don't have end dates, then yes, we'll have to look at a 1-year anniversary from the start date. Makes it very complex when it's like, you know, we basically have to do a date diff calculation. You know, we can't. It's anyway. Yeah, it's kind of dynamic, hard to do that on the fly, but we we'll figure out something. But actually make that part of the notes, because I had forgotten about that, because, yeah. Well, but that is something we need to incorporate into 560.
And what
contracts, yeah.
What Carol is suggesting, and I like the idea, is to put a note on the contract, if, you know, if it's in the bottom 10, or whatever note we would put on there.
That we could do that. We could put that in the remarks, or we could add a note type to the contract. So ask her where would you want that, as a sticky note on the contract, or do you want us to update the contract remarks? Because if we update the remarks, we would append to whatever remarks you have there. So we wouldn't erase it. You know, so for those of us who do put remarks in the contract, we would just try to see if hopefully there'd be enough space left in the remarks for us to add ugly contract or whatever that you'd want us to say there. And but if we do that kind of stuff, Carol, we'd have to figure out how to take that out of there if they're no longer ugly. We wouldn't want that remark to be there forever, because at some point either we're going to fire them or they're not going to be ugly anymore. So we don't want that remark to be there. So when I start thinking about sticking remarks somewhere, my next thought is, how do I get that remark out of there? Because I know nobody's going to manually do it. They may say they are, but they ain't. We'd have to create an alert of all the ugly customer contracts remarks that are no longer ugly.
Jeff is saying remarks show on the invoices, so that may not be good.
Yeah. Oh, that's even better. You're ugly. We'll put our competitor's logo in there. Call icon for service.
Internal remarks, though, on a contract. So
yeah, right. There's both. Right.
Shows.
Yeah. I like the one, call icon for service.
So anything else that we need to cover? We can, I think we're pretty much done, but we can hang tight for a little while for questions. Yeah. Just so everybody knows, it's a reasonable amount of work for us to get this stuff installed and running for you. So if you want to sign up, the 3 alerts that you would be signing up for are 150, which is the customer report. I'm going to post these 3 on the side. 768 is the one that's going to tell you about your bottom worst performers.
And there's 5 or 6 versions of 768, so you could have different types, right? So 768, 769, 770, right? Right,
and then but get 768 going first, and then right. You kind of got your arms around that, start to think about tweaking it, and then 560 is the low contract profit up for renewal. That one sounds like it's going to be at least a week before we roll it out. But 150 and 768 are good to go now.
One thing to be careful, you know, analytics, as everybody knows, is the mixed blessing and curse of our life the last year. I love it, and we were on the bleeding edge there, and so eAutomate allowed us to start using this account, using analytics way before they even released it. Unfortunately, lately it's been going through a hell of a lot of changes, and to the point of costing us $15,000 to $20,000 a month to manage it. But pay attention at the report, because of the data here is coming from analytics. At the report, I just want to make this final thing, is I'm showing you the last date that we have that analytics updated. So if you're running this report, kind of peek up there so that you can make sure that analytics is doing its thing every night. Because if analytics dies, there is nothing that just screams at you like eAgent that says, hey, analytics isn't running anymore. So kind of pay attention to what your data is good through this date. So just want to point that out. Other than that, I think I'm going to hold off on 560 here. What's that?
Do you know the current version of the contract analytics?
2013. Oh, the current version of analytics period? Oh, God. Todd's is that. I can't keep up with it anymore. The last build, I don't know.
If you're on version 2, you're pretty good.
Yeah, version 2 of analytics is good enough for us.
But for some of you guys, if you're on version 1, will this work with version 1, Mike?
I think version 1 doesn't have some of the details. Version 2, they changed the tables. They added more tables, so it may not work with version 1. I can't promise that it will. And by the way, we are having a separate meeting with DGI this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon around analytics. So we're actively up their butt about this. Let me put it that way, and they're willing to help. So there we go. It's all good. So 150 and the 768 series will all be ready as they are. We'll look at the other version for Cheryl as an action plan note for just contract straight up only. And then 560, I'm going to incorporate the change we've already talked about before I get it fully released. So, you know, which basically looking at the overage increase date at the meter group levels, and then trying to go find if there's any equipment that has a meter group there's any equipment that has a base scheduled increase coming up in the next X days. So in 560, all you tell us is only if the contract less than X percent, and actually it has the same parameters as 768 150. And in the comments, you just tell us, in the comments section, you would tell us, but 90 days in advance. We ran out of variables. We have 8 variables. Turns out we now need 20. But anyway, so the only variable for 560 that's different than 768 and all of those is the variable that tells us how far in advance before the expiration date you want to know. 60 days, 30 days, 90 days. You just put that in the comments when you subscribe to it.
Ashley, how are we doing? We got most questions covered? I'll take that as yes.
I think we're good. I was on mute.
Oh, okay. All right, everybody. You can obviously just send any questions to help@ceojuice.com. And the first step we have to do is make sure you got analytics going. The next step is to get ID 150 going.
Gifford's online, but he's not attentive. Gifford, pay attention. How does it know you're attentive? What are you supposed to do? Wave at the screen? I don't understand. I'm sorry. I'm way off task here. Oh, if you go to a different app, quit multitasking. Pay attention to me. It's all about me. I'm going to turn the camera on. I don't have any pants on. Okay. Everybody's attentive now. There we go.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time. Going to end the meeting now. Just go ahead, email help@ceojuice with any questions, and we'll take in all of your comments and answer any questions we didn't get to.